Hey everyone, thank you for being here. I know that it's been a while since I posted a video. It was actually my Christmas tour video, but today I have a lot of homemaking things that I'm doing. Right now I'm working on some bone broth, as you can see here. I'm also going to be doing some sourdough baking and making some elderberry syrup, as well as trying something I've never done before, which is rendering lard from pig fat. And we got that from a pig that we bought a few months ago, and it's been sitting in the freezer, so I really needed to do something with it. Okay, so first I want to thank you guys for being here, and if you haven't already, please subscribe and like this video. It really does help my channel out. So to get this bone broth going, I am using these bones that are from a cow. We also buy half of a cow when we buy our meat because it makes it so much easier and it's much more cost efficient for a family. We're not a large family, but we still eat a lot of meat. We're definitely carnivores. And I use the bones. This just said soup bones on the front of it. That's what they label it whenever you buy whatever portion of cow that you're getting. They always throw those in there. And I'm just putting some celery, some carrots, some onions, some peppercorns, whatever herbs I had in the fridge. I think I had rosemary and sage left over. So I just filled this up with Berkey water and salt. You definitely need salt in your broth. I like using my broths for soup and for roasts and things, so I like for it to have a lot of flavor. And I let this go on the stove probably for about 8 to 10 hours, and it was just perfect. Alright, so this is my bubbly sourdough starter, and today I'm going to make just a regular artisan loaf and some bagels. So first I'm working on the bagels. So this is Pantry Mama's recipe. It has worked the best out of all recipes that I have tried. I highly recommend it. But since then I've also started working on my own recipe for bagels, because like with any recipe, I change things, I make it my own, and so I'd love to post that. Now I'm working on the artisan loaf. This loaf, which I've also tweaked a lot, is the original recipe is from Farmhouse Home Boon, and it's her artisan loaf. And I am just grinding some, I believe this is hard red wheat. I'd have to look on my jar. I actually keep these in big 5-gallon food grade safe buckets with the twist top lid. I'm sure if you know anything about grinding your own grains, you've seen these. Then I use bread flour, and then organic unbleached all-purpose flour, and then salt, of course, and then water, filtered water, and then I mix this together and then let it autolyse, I think that's how you say it, for about 30 minutes. Then I do a series of 6 stretches and folds, which if you watch a lot of sourdough videos, you know the drill. You know with artisan loaves, you stretch, you fold, you let it rise, do the bulk ferment, and then you shape it, put it in the banneton, let it do its cold ferment, and then you bake. And I've talked about that a lot on the channel, so I won't go into great detail about this loaf, but here I'm just filling up some of my jars. I'm filling up my big jar I actually got for Christmas with some unbleached all-purpose flour, and then I'm going to fill up my sugar jar. So here, someone in our town actually was making organic homemade elderberry syrup kits. So it just came in this little brown bag with the instructions on the front. And we had actually only gotten sick once in December, which was a blessing because December 2022, we got sick literally every weekend. So this year, I wanted to amp up our nutrition, amp up our vitamins, just do all the things to make sure that we did not get as sick as we did the previous year. So one of the things I found was elderberry syrup. It helps boost immunity. It helps boost immunity. So I wanted to definitely get some of that. When I saw it in our mom's group, which is in our town, I had to buy this from this lady. So I just let it simmer on the stove for an hour. Then I added in half a cup of sweetener, which was agave syrup for me, which is normally what I put in my coffee. And interestingly enough, I just saw an article from Weston A. Price talking about how agave syrup has a high glycemic index, which it's worse for you than regular white sugar, which is very interesting. I'm going to do some more research on that. Obviously, I'm not a purist. I do love Weston A. Price, the Weston A. Price Foundation, and I love what they stand for, but I might keep using my agave syrup. It tastes really good. So that's what I put in this elderberry syrup, and now I'm pouring this in this jar. This jar was originally intended for kombucha, and I tried to make a homemade funnel. It worked out pretty good. I spilled probably about a tablespoon of water. Not a tablespoon of water, a tablespoon of syrup, and I was kind of upset about that, but I got it all cleaned up. It wasn't that big of a deal. And then I just sealed the lid, and I keep this in the fridge, and then my kids take half of a tablespoon every day, and I take a tablespoon, and so does my husband, and we do that every day, and it's supposed to help boost your immunity. It's really good for your system, and it actually tastes really good too, so my kids don't mind taking it whenever it's time. So here is the pork fat. I was actually really intimidated by rendering lard because I never done it before. Case was very ready. He was very eager to help me. I didn't even ask for his help, but he was very interested in this for some reason. So we did it together. We just cut the lard into 1-inch cubes. It was frozen in the freezer, and then I let it thaw out for an hour to probably 2 hours. I didn't let it thaw out all the way because I had read from many sources that fat is a lot harder to work with when it's completely thawed out. It's easier to cut whenever it is slightly thawed. So that's what I did. And then I put it in this big stock pot that I have that I usually make bone broth out of. But I recently learned that making broth in a Dutch oven is so much better. The water doesn't burn off as quickly, and it goes a lot better. So now I make my bone broths and vegetable broths in my Dutch oven. So I was making my lard in this stock pot, and you can see here that it is boiling, which I'm not entirely sure is what it's supposed to do. You definitely don't want your lard to sizzle because the more it sizzles. Oh, I also made banana bread. I didn't show that, but there it is. It was so good. I love that banana bread recipe, and I need to share that soon as well. You definitely don't want your lard to boil. You don't want it to sizzle. This was my first time. I will show you the end product at the end of the video. I was pretty happy with it. I'll probably only use it for things that I'm okay with tasting porky though, because I definitely didn't do the perfect silky white no pork flavor lard, but I am proud that I tried it. So I have another bag of fat in the freezer that I will definitely try to do better next time. So here I'm straining off my bone broth. I actually put more water in this because I felt like there was still some left, like I could get more out of the bones. And even if it's just a weaker broth the second time, you can still totally use it for soups or whatever. So here's my broth, and I was so excited. I will show you at the end of the video what this broth looked like when it solidified, but I definitely got the end product that I was looking for. Okay, so here's my bagels. They've been long fermenting for about 12 to 16 hours. I'm not sure. This is the next day. So now I am cutting them into the desired shapes that I want. The recipe on Pantry Mama calls for 80 grams. That's the size that you want for them. Here lately I've been making them a bit bigger because my kids, they like really big bagels. They like the cream cheese on them, and they just love bagels. So I've been making them a bit bigger, and they rise a lot better. And I just like bigger bagels. So, but here I made them just 80 grams each, and then I shaped them and then put the bagel hole in the middle, and then I let them rise for about 4 hours. I believe I put them in the fridge at this day, and then the next day I took them out and let them rise. Either way you can totally do. You can make sourdough your schedule. That's the great thing about sourdough. You can slow it down by putting it in the fridge, and that's what I did here. But these bagels turned out great. I love Pantry Mama. The other day I experimented with half white flour and half whole grain from my grain meal, and they actually tasted really great. It's very hard to work with whole grains, I'm not gonna lie. I like working with the traditional white unbleached flour better, just because you get a more consistent product. It's easier to work with. But here lately, just because of the nutrient dense, you can get a lot of nutrients from whole grains. That's why I bought my grain meal in the first place, just because of the nutrients that you get far more than white flour. So that is why I'm trying to work with it more. Usually I just make muffins, waffles, pancakes, but here lately I've been experimenting with breads and bagels and things like that. So here they are shaped, and here is my artisan loaf. It has risen and it's ready to be shaped. And the thing about working with whole grains in a sourdough artisan loaf is that you have to be a lot gentler with your dough, because those whole grains, they're sharp and they can cut the gluten strands, and your beautifully risen loaf, see, I'm being very gentle with it here, it can just fall completely flat. And I was noticing that my loaves were starting to turn out flat as pancakes, even though my starter is so strong and resilient and healthy. And I realized, I figured it out, it was because of the whole grains. They will cut your gluten strands if you're too rough with it. So I've actually been making my artisan loaves with bread flour and unbleached all-purpose flour whenever I want to get that beautiful big puffy loaf, and I'll show you that at the end of this video too, because I had a video of that. I was very proud of it. So I'm putting it in the Banneton basket, and I'm gonna let this do its cold ferment in the fridge for 12 to 16 hours. Again, I believe this is the next day, or maybe this was the night before. Again, this has been a couple weeks ago. Okay, that was the night before. So this is the next day. I've taken it out, and I'm gonna put it in my preheated oven. I believe it's at 500 degrees, and I'm going to do the expansion scores, put it in my Dutch oven. Now I'm going to bake this for 20 minutes at 500 degrees, then I'm going to take the lid off, and I'm going to bake it at 475 for another 20 minutes, and then I just check it. I can kind of gauge now what it's supposed to look like, and I'll take it out and let it cool for an hour before I slice it, and that normally gives me a pretty good result. So my bagels are puffy and they're ready to be boiled and then baked. So I put 1 tablespoon of salt, I put 1 tablespoon of sugar, not salt, in boiling water, and 1 tablespoon of baking soda. And then I boil these for about 30 seconds on each side. Most of the time I don't count, I just kind of count in my head, and sometimes I lose track. It's not that big of a deal. You get used to it. And then I put them back on the sheet. Here recently, I've actually been letting them dry out on a wire rack while I do the other bagels. I got that tip from someone. It's just so, the water doesn't pool underneath your bagels and you get kind of a weird caved in thing. That's happened to me before. Not every time, but sometimes it does happen. And then I'm using this flaky sea salt on top, which is my favorite topping, but I also love to use cinnamon sugar I've seen people use jalapeno cheddar. Oh, that looks so good. I really want to try that, but I haven't yet. So you can do anything you want on top of these bagels. Everything but the bagel seasoning from Trader Joe's is really good. Bagels are my favorite thing to make because they're just really satisfying once you learn how to do it and you get it right. And of course, here's my little helper. He's been very helpful in the kitchen lately. He's actually wanted to start his own sourdough starter. He's on day 1 today, which I'm very excited for him because he's so pumped about it. So I'm really excited to see what'll happen in about, I think he'll be ready to make bread in about 10 to 12 days, but we'll see. So I took my bread out, putting the bagels in, and then a few minutes later the bagels were done, and that was the end of this baking day. Here's some loaves that I made for an order that I was super excited about. And this is the loaf I made a couple days ago with bread flour and all-purpose flour. Look how much it puffed up. I was so excited. Okay, as promised, here's the end result of my bone broth. Look at that. Look, it gelled. I was so happy. That's the first time my bone broth has ever gelled, and you know that means that it is going to be the most nutritious bone broth ever. So I was so excited. There's my lard. I was super excited about that too. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!